Hi there, I'm Kelly Gorel, the Executive Director of PR Marketing for Hampton City Schools, and I have the pleasure today to be here with our Superintendent, Dr. Jeffrey Smith. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
And we're going to put you a little bit on the hot seat, even though you're not technically sitting out here in the open, but you just made the recommendation, what you're going to recommend to the school board for our opening for the 2021 school year, and that is to go 100% virtual for all students starting in September. So why that recommendation?
Well, Ms. Gore, again, I've said over and over again that these are times of uncertainty, and certainly in our region there's an uptick as it relates to the number of COVID-19 cases. And so we always need to keep in the forefront the safety and well-being of our students and staff. Like no one else, we certainly would desire to have all of our young people to return to the traditional setting, but we recognize that it's not, that we can't do it in a very safe manner at this particular point, and so hence the recommendation to do 100% virtual.
And back in June, we released to our families and staff our reopening plan, and it had those 4 phases. Phase 1 was more restrictive, where it was pretty much 100% virtual for all students, except for our special ed population and our pre-K students. But at this point, we're going a little bit more restrictive just because of what's going on all around us with the pandemic and the numbers growing.
That's correct. In our region, as I said earlier, we know that there's an increase and a rise in the number of cases in terms of individuals who are being impacted by this awful disease. And we need to make certain that we keep our young people and staff members safe. And so at this particular time, we really believe that that's the best path to take. And so we'll be going 100% virtual. That is certainly the overall recommendation.
Now, and you mentioned, of course, our business is teaching and learning, and it'll be teaching and learning even at 100% virtual. And we mostly want to get students back in person because we love that face-to-face, that collaboration, that interaction. So do you see at some point that we can hopefully begin to transition into a modified in-person learning model?
That is our hope. We will continue to monitor the situation, and so we'll remain very hopeful. We have several mitigation strategies that we have put in place in hopes that we can return our staff and students to a modified schedule. And there are a number of things with the mitigation strategies. For example, we have in place, when we look at desk shields, the plexiglass, we have also ordered PPE, face shields for teachers and staff members, face mask. Each student would have a face mask as well. We have ordered that. We have also expanded our cleaning protocols to ensure that we have the appropriate grades in terms of hospital grade, in terms of cleaning solutions. So a lot in terms of health mitigations, but also cleaning mitigations around strategies that we will have in place. But again, that's going to be really based upon our return to a modified, solely going to be based upon what things look like in our community in terms of COVID cases and so forth.
Well, and you say, we've got those mitigation strategies, the PPE. I've had the opportunity to go into several school buildings over the past few weeks and to be on subcommittees as we're looking at those modified reopening in-person learning. And it truly is. It's been ordering face masks, 1 per student, the face masks and shields for all staff members. I had the opportunity to see the shields that will go on each desk or table, the tubs of hospital-grade wipes that are going to be in every classroom, and the sprays. So just those types of things. I know we're working on the stickers to go on the floors as far as to show that physical distancing and different posters and signage. So there's a lot of things that have been put into place just in the last few weeks with the hope of opening in person.
We've taken a lot of steps and measures in hopes that we could return to an in-person traditional model, and even with that modified, but again, the safety and well-being remains the priority for us.
So virtual learning, we obviously started that March 13th, the governor made that announcement that he was closing schools for a short period of time, and then a few weeks later said, no, it will be the rest of the year. So we have a little bit of virtual learning under our belt, but how will this look different for our students come September?
Right. Of course, back in March, when we moved toward virtual learning, that was in an emergency situation.
It
and
sure
while
was.
we had one-to-one for students in grades 5 through 12, and a very robust professional development program around virtual learning, still the circumstances were quite different, and that was a time of an emergency. We've had more time. There are lessons learned. And so when we think about the virtual learning, it will be quite different. For example, we will engage young people in new learning, but not only will we engage them in new learning, there will be the attendance, grades will be issued, and so quite different from the previous. Attendance will be taken on a daily basis. Young people at the elementary, middle, and high school, all levels will have a schedule just like very similar to their normal day. So let's think of it that a young person in elementary, they may start their day with the morning announcements as a part of that schedule. So quite different in terms of the structure when we return in terms of the virtual learning this time versus what we had during the time of the emergency.
Correct, because in the spring, grades 5 through 12, we have the Alternative Learning website back in the spring. And there were Zoom sessions, it was interactive. There was some new learning, a lot of, remediation on the math and the English. And then for our pre-K through 4 students, we did a lot of learning packets. Still, we had teachers that were on Zoom sessions with those students. So this will be much more structured, you're saying, as far as a schedule, Zoom sessions with their teachers, very interactive. But the big piece that I caught on is attendance will be required, just like sitting in a classroom.
That's right.
And as well as grades, traditional grades.
Traditional grades. And also, as you mentioned, we had the learning package for pre-K through 4 in particular, and we had the one-to-one for grades 5 through 12. And this time we have been able to purchase devices for grades K through 4 to also address the one-to-one there. So quite different in terms of the virtual this time versus the virtual back in March. And while we had quite a bit of success, there were a lot of lessons learned, and we've applied those lessons learned to this new setting in terms of 100% virtual when we start in September.
Well, you kind of my next question was going to be, how are we going to address those students that don't have the one-to-one? Because everyone knows that Hampton for years, we're talking years, have had the one-to-one for grades 5 through 12. And we know that going all virtual will present some challenges for our families. And part of that was that having that device in your hand. So we have purchased for kindergarten through 4th grade.
We have, and so for grades K through 4, so now we will have grades K through 12 in terms of a one-to-one device. But also we recognize in March the gap in terms of internet access. And so we have worked with Cox, members of the team, to ensure that if we have families that may not have internet connectivity, that we can provide that as a school division with our partnership or through our partnership with Cox. And so we think that also that readiness to address what the gap might be, and we know that there's a gap with virtual, so we worked this summer to ensure that we would be able to address whatever the gap might be in terms of internet connectivity and also the device as well.
So back in the spring, I know that, again, we still had families that, may not have had internet access, and we worked with Cox to connect. But what I think that I'm hearing you say is we've gone a step above for this type of virtual, where we could assist them so they have no fee for their internet access for several months. So they really need to reach out to us if our families have that need for internet. Well, everyone's going to have the need for internet access, but if they have the need that they're not able to provide, we can hopefully do that for them.
We can do that, and we would encourage families to reach out to us, and we would like to really help facilitate that process to ensure that all of our families have internet connectivity. And so we know that as a school division, that is very important. And so, again, that is one way that we're asking families, please reach out to us so that we can help facilitate that connectivity for you. But also, in addition to that connectivity, we would ask families to help us, because as you know, it's going to be very important in terms of a survey and the request in terms of, as we're looking at Parent Portal. And we need information from our families as well. So in as much as we want them to reach out to us, we're also asking our families to support this virtual learning. So should we find ourselves in a place, and we certainly remain hopeful of returning to that in-person, that we're prepared to do that and we can transition fairly quickly in that regard.
So this is a second survey. We did a survey back in June where we just kind of got the temperature check of the community and their comfort level of returning to school at full capacity, hybrid, or virtual. This is one that we're not just saying please, we're saying we need you to, because this survey that's got released today as well, we're asking every family to make sure that they've created a Parent Portal account and they're going in and they're putting that specific information as far as, you know, the internet access so that we know who we need to assist. They're going to be putting information as far as what is their preference once we start to transition to a modified in-person. And also transportation, that will be a part of that survey, because those are things that we need to really be scheduling now for when we can start transitioning back, so we're prepared.
Absolutely. And so we don't want to wait until the time to transition and then only have 2 weeks. And so we are asking our families to really support and to continue to support us in providing us with that important information. And so please fill out that survey. It's so important to fill out the survey, to go, and if you don't have a Parent Portal account, please set that account up and provide us with the information. We do need the transportation, whether or not you would be able to provide the transportation or whether you would rely upon Hampton City Schools. We need to know whether or not at the time that we transition to that of in-person, what your preference is, whether or not you would like to remain with virtual, or if you would say, yes, I would like to do the virtual, but I think that at this particular time, if we return and when we return to in-person, I really would like for my child or children to do the in-person. So we're asking those questions, and so parents, we need, and family members, that information.
So this survey also, we've released it today with your recommendation. We're asking for parents to respond by August the 10th. And it is strictly through Parent Portal because it needs to be for each child. So if I'm a parent with 3 children in Hampton City Schools, I need to make sure that I fill out those preferences for every single one of those three children. So I would go in. And if you do not have a Parent Portal account, I'll put this plug in, as I've worked along with this, is that, you know, those parents have to have a specific access code and an ID that's specific to their child. So if they do not have that, call their child's school. Everybody has directions. They know how to walk our parents through this. So the first step is to make sure they've got that account, and then they can go in and start answering those questions. Now, in one piece, you know, I know we keep saying we want to transition to in-person learning whenever it's deemed safely to do so. But we need to be prepared because of that survey. But if I'm a parent and I fill out that survey tomorrow, will I have the option to go back in and potentially change my preference once we really do see when we can transition?
Yes, family members will have that opportunity to go back in and to change a particular preference because circumstances change, life happens. And so we want to collect the data now so that we can have some baseline data. But beyond that, we know that changes may occur and life happens. And so family members will have an opportunity to certainly go in, and we'll provide them with an opportunity to make changes if they need to do that later.
Right. But it's still important to do it now because we have a school division of almost 20,000 students.
That's right.
So to schedule between transportation and that blended model of maybe only 15 students in a classroom or less, that doesn't happen overnight. So we have to keep working. We have to keep working with an in-person model in mind, even though we're starting 100% virtual. So lots of information, but really what's next? Between now and next Wednesday, there are 2 events. Tell us about those 2 events.
So we have two major events, Facebook Live on August the 3rd, and so we encourage members of our learning community to connect with us. They'll have an opportunity to ask questions with regards to our 100% virtual learning and any other question or questions that individuals may have with regards to our plans going forward. And so certainly, please connect with us via Facebook Live on August the 3rd. And the second, on August the 5th, certainly the school board meeting, I will make the official recommendation to the board on August the 5th. And certainly the board will get an opportunity. They've been engaged as individual board members, but as a collective board, they'll get an opportunity to engage in that discussion and so forth. So the official recommendation to the school board will be on August the 5th. And individuals will get a chance to connect with us there, certainly to see and view the school board meeting and the recommendations as well.
So again, very different opening to this school year, in the fall going 100% virtual learning. But regardless, our motto, our mission is always, in Hampton City Schools, it's about every child, every day, whatever it takes. And so it's going to continue to be that way, regardless if it's 100% virtual or that transitioning to a in-person model.
Absolutely. We have a commitment to every student and family that we serve, and that is very important to us. High quality instruction, whether it's in person or virtual, and we will always keep in the forefront the safety and well-being of all individuals.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here, as I know that, this is a lot to really talk about in a short period of time, and for our families to make those best informed decisions as they're going forward.
Thank you for the opportunity.